gonna change the world, change the world, change the world, yeah.
Welcome to Celebrate Transformation, where we are transforming our lives by the renewing of our mind. I'm Sally Colon-Petree, joined by my co-host, Mr. Tim Storey.
I'm having so much fun doing these shows.
So fun. Are you kidding? Doing a show with one of your best friends?
It's like our lunches. See, we got to let people in on this. You know, we go back over 20 years.
Long time.
And we have phenomenal lunches together. It's not always us two. Sometimes we have great friends with us. But don't we have great conversations?
So fun. So funny. I always leave our conversations just feeling so full. I love it.
Yeah. So thank you, Jesus Daily, for allowing us to do this show where we're bringing your skill set and my skill set together to help change people's lives. So I'm a minister, pastor, I have a doctorate in world religion, but a lot of my study is in counseling, therapy, and I became a life coach many years ago. And so I bring a lot of my life coaching in. And Sally, the great things you've done, anywhere from singing to directing, to acting, to producing, and also life coaching.
Yes. So, you were actually my inspiration. And I'm not just saying that. You really were.
Yeah, but I'm loving that you're doing that because you're using your experience of life, but also a lot of the hard work that you do. You are one of the hardest workers on dealing with their own personal lives that I know. She'll take a class and then she goes, I took it again. I'm like, okay.
I did. And I'm reading so many books right now too. It's just lots of self-discovery. It's fun. It's so fun.
So we got a lot of viewers. And so let's expand the brand. Let's change people's lives. And there's 3 levels of living: almost, most, and utmost.
Ooh,
Don't get stuck in an almost life. Come on, man.
Come on.
Let us help transform your life. So today's subject is a subject of grief. And if I could just say this, sometimes you have a promise. A promise is like, ooh, something's going to happen. And then the promise dies. The promise dies. And when something or someone dies, there's always a grieving process. Now, doctors have found, meaning psychologists and psychiatrists, when something dies that is close to you, the average grieving process is 2 years. So what can die, Tim? Your dreams can die. The thoughts that you had about your children and what they were going to do in life, you feel like that could die in you. A job can be severed. So in the midst of COVID-19, we wanted to deal with this subject because a lot of people are grieving.
Yeah.
Sally, what do you think about this subject?
I mean, it's a deep subject. Obviously, it's not an easy one to talk about. But I do think, as you were saying earlier, there are different levels. I believe there's a micro way of grieving and a macro way of grieving. And I think, with something like a death, that's a big one.
100%.
But, breaking up with somebody, divorce, those are big. But then there's, like right now we're going through COVID and there's people that had these big elaborate weddings planned that they can't do now, and that to me is more of a micro depending on, the situation. But there's different levels of grieving. And I think right now with COVID and this pandemic and so many people, as we were talking in the last show, being disappointed, there's so much grief.
Yes.
So much.
Let's go there. I love the way how you broke that down into 2 different categories. And, as you said, a lot of people are grieving because they could not do their wedding the way they wanted to. I know people that have passed away.
Right.
That we could not do their funeral properly.
Yeah.
Because of COVID-19. How about graduation? Let's go there for a second. We both have kids.
Absolutely.
A lot of our kids' friends, they could not properly graduate. That would have depressed us when we were like seniors in high school. Think about it.
Yeah.
When you're a senior and you just get going in the year and you're so excited to graduate and then you couldn't, how would that have affected you?
I mean, I would have been so hurt that I didn't get to hang out with my friends. And you know, this was kind of the micro I was talking about. Like Isabella, she was graduating from junior high, which is a smaller graduation, but they had this big trip planned for Universal, all the 8th graders. She was so excited about it. That got cut out, you know? So she was grieving, but I would put that on the micro grief, but it's still important.
Yes. Okay. So one of the things we want to say to you today about grieving is, number one, it's okay to grieve.
Absolutely.
We're living in a time where everybody is just talking about the celebration of life, the celebration of life, the celebration. But life has many seasons. In the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, it says there's a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to tear and a time to mend. So in the tearing side of life, that doesn't feel like celebration. It feels like you're going through it. So let's talk about this idea of it's okay to go through a season of grieving.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of people are grieving over things right now.
Yeah. I think it's really important to allow everybody to grieve in their own way.
Okay.
You know, and also giving people the space to grieve, right? I think sometimes as humans, you know, somebody will, like, a month goes by, something happens that was tragic, and the people in your life are like, aren't you over that yet? Come on, like, get over it. It's not even that, you know, because they're uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right? Because it's very uncomfortable to be around someone that's grieving when you don't know how to deal with it. So you just want them to hurry up and grieve, you know, just hurry up and grieve, get over it, you know? The other aspect of that, as you know, I had a tragedy in my life. I lost my father suddenly and tragically. And in that situation, there's 4 siblings. And, you know, what I wanted to make sure was that I wasn't expecting my siblings to grieve the way I thought I should grieve, right? And I think it's important in families that you allow everyone to take their space to grieve and not expect somebody to get over it as quick as you. So it's giving them the space to grieve the way they need to grieve.
Yeah. And as you're saying, because I was there with you and for you, is that when your father passed, because he's such an amazing man, and I'd say he is because we're eternal.
Yes.
Is that, you know, he was an artsy guy, creative, ultra smart.
Yeah, genius.
Funny.
Yes.
Spiritual man. And he died unexpectedly. And so I think that, tell me about what it's like to go from the energy of life of Ecclesiastes 3 talking about to all of a sudden, boom, death.
Yeah.
Hit.
I think in that situation, you know, the year before my dad passed, I had a week of concentrated time with my dad. We went on a retreat. It was during Christmas time. It was a totally last minute decision for me to fly to Chicago to be with him. And we binge watched Netflix and the energy, and we were eating Giordano's pizza and just Puerto Rican food that my aunt gave us. There was so much energy in that week being with my dad. And then a few months later, the tragedy happened. So it went from bright light, spotlight, exciting, disco light. We'll even put it at that because it was so fun.
Oh, yeah.
To darkness. And then what?
Yes.
You know, I went into a hole. It was my dad, you know, and everybody knows this, was my person. He was my number one. Because as you know, I lost my mom 5 years prior to that.
Yes, who's amazing as well.
Thank you. Yeah, my mom was amazing. And, you know, it was so tragic. With my mom, it was a slower thing. So it's a little bit easier to go through something when you know it's happening. When you don't know what's happening and it's sudden and tragic, there's like something extra in that. So I had to take my time, you know, and I'm still grieving. You know, it's a process. You said 2 to 3 years. It hasn't been 1 year yet. But I'm taking my time. I'm giving myself the space.
Okay, so let me go here on my life coach side, that I think that we go through recovery and discovery at the same time. And you guys will constantly hear me say this on this show, because we need to continually remember that. And so in one part of your life, you may be in a recovery stage, but in the other, you're in a discovery stage. So for you, Sally, it couldn't have been easy because on one front, your father had passed. On the other side, you had successful projects going on.
Right.
You have two amazing daughters that you're raising. And so how were you able to work through the grieving while still having the responsibilities of being a producer, director, humanitarian, working at the Dream Center, raising your daughters?
Yeah.
Tell me how you were able to handle that.
I think a lot of it was having the right people around me to allow me to talk. I needed people to hear me.
Yeah, I love that. Keep going.
You know, my therapist, you, my best friend, Cindy Diane, Sherry, you know, the people in my life. So I was able to talk through things and given that space by people that love me to talk through it. And that's what I did. I took that, but I never wanted to just be crying, you know, I'm so sad. Oh, my dad. I didn't want to be that. So I definitely took that space with people I trusted. And then I had my own quiet times. I still have conversations with my dad. I do. There are days that I am in my car and I talk to my dad. And it makes me feel good because it's conversations that, you know, it's sometimes I say, why did that happen? You know, sometimes I ask him if he's okay. Sometimes I talk about how much I enjoyed him. And I think it's important to always remember the good, you know, and not always focus on why it happened or why he left or whatever it is. It's focus on the good times. And that's where I'm at now in my life is I'm really trying to focus on the good times. And I think that's what we need to do is kind of switch a little bit and think about those times that we had that were just amazing, you know, because he was an amazing guy.
I like that. But it did take you a period of time to get to that space in your mind and in your spirit where you could reflect on the good times. We're talking about transformation, and transformation, as you know, is change. Okay. And so one of the things that I have learned as I'm getting older and more mature is that we are in a state of constant change, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that the more responsibility we have, the more chances we have of things not going right. And so it's amazing. You can be grieving in one area of your life and celebrating in another area. But you brought up an amazing point that I want to go to is you could be the right person, but you need the right partners.
Absolutely.
If you are grieving, you need the right partners that will help you through the process.
You have to have those people that you can trust. You have to have those people that are not afraid to hear you cry,
yes.
You know, that are not uncomfortable because you're crying. And I think those are the people that love you the most authentically, that care for you and that have an empathetic heart, you know, because if you're around people that are not empathetic, then you sort of become pathetic to them.
Yes. Okay. Can we go there?
Yeah.
See, I think that because both of us are energetic,
yes,
we're positive, that some people will get bummed out if I don't give them that version of myself that day.
Right.
So there are times where I'm just more reflective, and I'm an artist. I'm a creator.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm in a creative mood and someone will be around me and they'll go, "Are you okay?" And I go, "No, I'm actually feeling great." "Well, you seem really quiet today." Well, it's not because I'm going through something. It's just I'm in a creative, reflective mood. But how about if somebody is really grieving? I think that's one reason that people isolate themselves so much.
Yeah, it's true.
When they're going through grief. And so talk to us about that, because I think isolation is good and isolation is not so good sometimes. Right. Help me.
Well, I think that people isolate because they don't want to be a burden to someone. And so, you know, they go into a dark hole and they're by themselves. And that's why it's so important. And I will always push this. It's so important to have that small group of people that you trust.
Gotta have it.
that when you do go through it, because you will, and we all do, right? Tim, you've been through it. I've been through it. Thank God that we have our small crew of people that we can go to that we know we're not going to be a burden. They want to help us. And,
Yes.
and you know what? We are that to them. And I think
Mhm.
that's important, to be that for someone else as well.
Yeah. There's a very famous entertainer, like one of the biggest in the world. And they had a person in their family pass. And I went to this person's house, and the relative said to me, they don't want to talk to anybody else. They're waiting for you. So I went into this dark room, and I just kind of saw an image there. And I was smart enough not to say one word. I just looked for a place to sit, and I could barely see. And I sat in this chair, and we never said anything for at least 20 to 30 minutes.
Wow.
Then the person got up and said, that's why I waited for Tim's story.
Oh.
Okay, and let me tell you what that meant.
Wow.
The Bible says in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verse 9, pity the person who falls and has no one to help them up.
Oof.
But also pity the person who, when they are cold, has no one to keep them warm.
Ooh.
And then it says a threefold cord is not easily broken. Now, watch how powerful this is. Number one, pity the person who falls, has no one to help him up. But also, let's go to this one. Pity the person who's cold and has no one to keep him warm. Sometimes when somebody's grieving, they don't need words. They need warmth.
They need warmth. They need a body. They need to be heard. They need to be heard. They need to be loved. I mean, that's it. That's all we need in that
Stop
moment.
it with the words sometimes.
I
Stop
love
it.
the word.
I
Come
don't
on.
always want to hear a word. I don't always want to hear a poem.
Right.
I don't even always want to hear a scripture.
Here's the other
Sometimes I just need your presence.
That's it. And you know what? When someone's grieving, they don't need to be fixed. They're not broken. They don't need to be fixed. Don't try to fix me. Just let me heal on my own. Just be there, listen, be empathetic. That's all people need when they're in the grieving mode.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, you know that how much I love people, right? This is why I chose what I do for a living. And one day I was walking through the airport. I'm just minding my own business. And I see a lady, and she's walking, and she doesn't know that someone's behind her because there's a long corridor at an airport in another city, not Los Angeles. And I could hear her crying, and she had glasses on. So I remember I passed her, and then we were going to go, I guess, on the same flight because I see the gate, and she's in a corner by herself, and she's still doing this. She's shaking.
Oh, wow.
So the pastor and me went over, and I said, Miss, I said, my name is Tim Storey. I said, I'm actually a pastor. And I noticed you're crying real hard. Are you okay? And she said, no.
Wow.
And I said, do you want to talk about it? And she goes, yeah, I'll talk about it. I said, what happened? I said, what happened? And she said, my dog died.
Oh.
So this is very, very interesting because people, sometimes we pass by someone who is really grieving, somebody who is coping, trying to get through. Okay. I ended up having this most amazing conversation with a 63-year-old woman who had a dog for 15 years.
Wow.
That she goes, Mr. Storey, this dog was like
Everything.
my family.
Yeah.
And I go, listen, cry.
Wow.
Just cry. And just let that be. And she said, I'm not a religious person, is what she said. She goes, but I'm telling you, you're like my angel today.
Oh, I love that.
So I want to say that to everybody watching, is that be open to be somebody's angel.
I mean, you're right. That opportunity, it was there and you took it. And that's the thing, we got to open our eyes. I feel like God puts those opportunities in front of us so much. And because we're not paying attention, we miss those opportunities that can actually not change the person, but it could change you too.
Yes.
It's us paying attention, right? Like eyes up, eyes wide open.
Okay. So our show title is Transformation. And I think part of the transformation lesson today is it's okay to go through these different phases of life. And there's a time to laugh, there's a time to dance, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, but there's a time to mourn.
Absolutely.
Is actually what it says. There's a time to mourn. So
Right.
as we are growing as people, it's okay to mourn, and it's okay to be a dad and tell your kids, I'm a little off today.
Right.
You know, I had a tough day in my job, and I'm not going to take it out on anybody, but I'm a little off today.
Right.
I don't know. Have you ever done that with your daughters? Told them you're off?
Yeah. And, I learned that if I communicate with them when I'm having a hard day, that they won't take it personal.
Yes.
So if I don't tell them, if maybe I'm a little bit short with them, or, I'm telling them to do something that they don't want to do. Like if I'm that way, they take it personal because they feel like they did something wrong. So when I say to them, girls, I'm having kind of a hard time. Something happened. This person called me and that was uncomfortable. I need a little bit of time. I'm going to take a little time out. Then they're good. Then they're like, okay, mom, go ahead.
Yes. So we want to say to you that Sally and I both come from the church. We ended up in Hollywood and doing projects. I started the Hollywood Bible Study in 1992 in a person's house that is well known, and it exploded, and Sally became part of it early on, and it's been a big blessing to Hollywood, and then obviously as an actress, producer, director, all the things that she does have been phenomenal. But we are people of God, people of faith, and we want to pray for you. If you are going through a time of grief because you have suffered loss, it could be loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a family member, whatever loss you're going through, we want to pray for you. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to. And we already have a staff of people that are behind the show, and we're going to pray. And Sally, what is the best way that they can connect to us?
The best way is probably just to comment below. You can also DM us on Jesus Daily, and they'll get us the message. You can DM us on our Instagram, which you see below. And just comment below, and we'll get back to you, as soon as we can. And, we are a community of change. That's what we want to be. Celebrate transformation. That's what Tim and I want to create, this community of change.
Yes.
We are taking this time to be able to, sort of give you some tools that we've learned. Tim, 30 years of life coaching, me, 5 years of transformation, and now becoming a life coach myself. So, tune in and take it in for yourself. This is a place of growth.
I love this. And I love what you're saying. It is a community. It's a big one, though.
It is.
I tell you what, this show is going to have so many viewers.
Yes.
You guys, share, because you care. Share this with people. We are a community of change. Come on.
We are. And you know what? Tell us where you're from, because we know that Jesus Daily goes international. So we want to know, are you in Africa? Are you in Puerto Rico? Are you here in America? Like, we want to know where you guys are watching from. We want to get to know you.
What a beautiful community of change, because you're exactly right. And thank you, Jesus Daily, again, for taking our message worldwide, all over the world, letting people know it's okay to evolve, to change, to grow, right?
Yes. And as you're with us every week, you'll start to see, we're going to take the tools we've learned and we're going to give them to you as a gift from us. And we want to hear your change. If something that we said was life-changing to you, tell us about that. We want to hear the good stuff.
I love it. Okay, let me give you just a little rundown of some things we talked about. That you can have a promise. The promise can die. You will grieve. But the grieving is not the end, because Jesus Christ is the resurrection and the life. And Jesus resurrects dead things. I beg you to hear me.
Yes.
If you feel like your personality has died, he could resurrect it. If your joy has died, he could resurrect it.
I love it.
Isn't this so awesome?
Listen, if your love life has died,
If
he
your
can
love
resurrect
life has died, do you believe that, Sally? He can resurrect it?
I believe it. I believe it.
He could resurrect it. So here's what I'm telling you. You could have the promise.
Yes.
Promise dies. You grieve. Grieving's okay. That's what we said today. But look for the resurrection. Do not stay in the place of mourning your entire life.
That's right.
Okay? And
Yeah.
even if somebody has passed that you really love, one way to honor them is to live.
That's right.
Live, 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 live.
And focus on the good times that you had with that person. What were the good things about that person? And be happy that you had. I'm just excited I had, 73 years. Well, he was 73. I had my whole life with my dad. And
Yes.
I got to be around this amazing person. So I'm going to focus on that.
I like that. So life is still good. So let people know about this program. And we cannot wait to see you next week. And we're going to continue to change. My name is Tim Storey. This is Sally Colon-Petree. And we cannot wait to see you soon.
We'll see you next Wednesday, 9 a.m. Bye, guys.
I'm gonna change the world.